shift onto is creating playable units and setting up loadouts. So this will probably be the most complicated part of mission making because there is some coding involved. As I said before, I'm going to make this as simple as possible. And also there are already some prime examples inside the mission template. So if I just quickly go to our init mission setup, if we go to our Visual Studio Code that we opened earlier when I was showing you the init mission setup stuff, and we go to loadouts, you can see that there's a core loadout file here. You're going to be editing this. Again, don't worry, it looks more complicated than it is, but there is some examples here of how to do it already. So if you pull the files directly from the template folder, you should see or you should gain a basic understanding of how exactly to do this. So the best place to start with loadouts, at least I find, is with sort of like getting an idea of what the faction is in your head, sort of like what gear they might be operating with, what kind of unit is it. In the case of this mission that I'm creating now, I would like to have the main brunt of our forces, so our squads, or our squad composition, to be Marine Raiders, so MARSOC Raiders. And the supporting element, which is an LAV, would be a 3-man team of crewmen, right? So in order to accomplish that, the first place to go, really, unless you already know what MARSOC Raiders look like, is Google. So I have already gone and done a little bit of Google search, and you can see here, you type in MARSOC Raiders, they pop up, and you get an idea of like what kind of gear they use, what their kit looks like, that kind of stuff. And you can see here that they seem to be using like a modernized ERDL with, you know, your standard like special forces looking tack helmets and whatnot. So we have an idea of what they look like. We can also see they're using what appear to be Mark 18s, and the optics they appear to have are all Elkins, which I do believe we have available. So we can spend some time trying to create or recreate that kit in ArmA. So to do that, we will go to no, that's not what I want to do. We'll go back to our mission. We'll go to our pre-placed single man over here. We'll right click on him, and right near the bottom you'll see there is an option for edit loadout. So you'll pop that open, you see there's 2 arsenals, an Ace arsenal and a BI virtual arsenal. We're interested specifically in BI virtual arsenal because it's the easier stuff to work with when you export the kit. So the place I like to start with is to create a base. So what I've done is I've saved I've saved an empty operator, so this just clears him of gear. In order to do that, you just go to the gear and you opt up for the empty thing in the select list. So we know that they're using an ERDL type uniform, which I think we have available. You see there's a lot of choice here. We will go to, it's like a Frogman kit or something like that. Where can we find it? G3 uniform, M81. There you go. Cool. So for the base of our MARSOC loadout, we have this ERDL type uniform. It's already set. It looks pretty much right already. So the next thing we'll need to do is go to our vests and find a vest that matches. I think we have SPCs, which will probably be good. Okay, so this is a Marine USMC kit. So we could use these, or we could opt for man, I've seen another vest type before. It's like a plate frame. See, this is more of a like a special forces look. So if we just go take a look back at our images, he's using more of standard vest. These guys are using, I think, plate frames by the looks of it. Yeah, these look like plate frames. So we're gonna go with plate frames for now. So we can see here with our plate frame that it's not a very heavy kit setup. So we can opt for either of these, or we can maybe push for an MBAV. Oh, these look quite nice. So I suppose what I'm getting at here is that there's no one way to do loadouts, right? You look for stuff that looks appropriate, that looks good. You look at reference images and you try and figure out for you what the best thing might be. So I think maybe we're gonna go with the Marine SPC, because it looks like it's got a little bit more carry space, a little bit more modular. This thing has oh, there's patchless options. Machine gunner. Yeah, this kind of stuff will be useful. So let's go with a. I don't want a rifleman because he's got that plate in front, and I don't like the look of that. And again, purely my own experience. But anyway, so we'll opt for patchless. Now let's go with just plain light. There we go. Okay, for backpack, we probably just going to be set using a kit bag. So the Coyote kit bag pretty much fits that already, so that's fine. We'll leave that like that. Headgear, we've seen that these guys like to use sort of like an Ops Core style helmet, which I think we do have available. There are boonie hats over there. Ah, fast helmets, yeah, these will work. So we've had a couple with like it's like a tan look. We've got some foliage green. We've got some ranger set up, but we're not playing ranger, so we can skip that. Some multicam. We don't really want multicam. Coyote's good though. I like the look of that. Yeah, let's go with Coyote for now. And then for facewear, let's go back to our reference images. So it looks like they're mostly operating without facewear. We don't really have any beards to throw around, so we can probably just let them sit. But generally, I find that like a nice alternative to no facewear is to include a shema. So like a shema like that, or like an alternative one. You know, like these two are nice options. Yeah, let's leave it like that. Suppose we can opt for one with goggles as well. Nah, let's just opt for the straight open face. That looks quite nice. Right, in terms of night vision, we can use the single eye knock, I think. Yeah, one of these guys. These standard marine gear. They might these guys might be operating with your quad nod setup. But I mean, this is going to be a daytime mission, so this is really just flavor, adding to a backpack or something like that. The reason I've added it onto the uniform is so that I can fetch the class names later to do the loadout. So you'll see how that works now. What we'll need next is a Mark 18. So it should be just listed under. In fact, we could probably opt for an M4 with the block pattern, because that pretty much suits our needs. I do think we do have Mark 18s available. We do. Slightly shorter barrel, but let's go for the M4 block 2. Slightly longer, looks good as well. Okay, we've seen that all of these guys are operating with Elkins, so we just need to find one. Okay, I see they're listed as SU over here. We'll put one with a red dot on top, just for the sake of looking good. I reckon do we want to, we'll slap a regular, or maybe a stubby grip, or an angled foregrip. Let's go look at our reference images. What are these guys rocking? That guy's got a vertical grip. This guy's got nothing. Nothing. Okay, yeah, let's opt for nothing. Why not? We'll forget any form of grip for now. We're okay with that one. We're not gonna go suppressors. This is more of a loud operation, and we can include just a regular PEC, in case we need that. Again, not a night op, so it's not really important. But in case you want to reuse these loadouts, it's good to have options available. You know. Okay. So this, what we're looking at right now, as it stands, is our base kit. Now, for the purpose of loadouts, I have written a bunch of helpers that make it much easier to generate these loadouts. So you don't need to worry about things like earplugs and bandages and forgetting them, because that really tends to piss off the player base. I've got all of those helpers pre-built. You can just execute them. I'll show you how to do that now once we start assembling this kit. So we've got our kit available. We have we have our base kit, but what we're interested in, specifically, let's say for a rifleman classes, we're interested in setting up his vest, right? Because his uniform we're gonna populate with helper items, and for medics and stuff, the backpacks are already configured, so we'll have to do backpacks for non. Geez, what's the term for it? For specialized roles, for things like anti-tank and grenadiers and stuff like that. If they need backpacks, we'll have to auto-populate those. But for medics, we've already got the kit laid out. So in the case of these, the setup for this stuff, I'm fairly keen on doing these puller type magazines. So let's opt for in fact, let's start with the grenade loadout, because these things we'll use more frequently. So we want a regular M67 frag grenade. We want 2 M83 smoke grenades, and we probably want a couple flashbangs, because we're going to be doing a bit of room clearance. So for the frag grenades and smoke grenades, not really important, but for the flashbang, you must specifically use the one by the ace team. If you don't use the ace flashbangs, they don't work, or the AI don't respond well to them, rather. So let's add 4 flashbangs per person. We will include magazines with pullers in them. So let's add 4 of these, 3 of these guys, and maybe Mark 82, Mark 1, Ranger Tracer. So puller, tracer, yeah, so we'll add 2 of those. We don't have enough space. We'll yank 1 flashbang for now, and maybe for our regular riflemen's, we'll add another flashbang in. So we'll pull 1 flashbang out, we'll add our extra tracer magazine, and that is the layout of our vest. So we've got 6 magazines total in the vest. You'll have an extra in the gun. That makes 7 total magazines, plus 2 frag grenades, 2 white smoke grenades, and 3 flashbangs. So obviously the kit will vary from, it may change from vest to vest, but as far as the base consideration is concerned, we're happy with how this is laid out. The next thing we're going to do is actually export this, so I can show you sort of like the basic loadout for a rifleman. So on the bottom of your screen, you'll see there's an export button. Once we've exported that, we're going to go to our Visual Studio Code thing again, and we've got our mission template already copied in. We're going to go to Loadouts and then Factions, and then in Factions we're going to add a new folder, and we're going to call it marsoc, because these are the loadouts we're dealing with. And inside marsoc we're going to add a new file, and we're going to call this rifleman .sqf. The .sqf is important because that is the file declaration that we know how to reference. So with this created, we're going to Control V our loadout setup, and once we've done this, the first thing we need to do is double click onto this, right? Hit Control F. It'll pop up this little window, and there's a little arrow there. You drop that down, and this is a find and replace. And what we're going to do is replace this with _unit, because this is the variable we pass into the script in order to interact with the loadout. So we do that, and we hit replace. It'll replace everything with unit. Then right at the top, we're going to type in params. So that's 1 word. Hit enter, push it onto the next line, open square brackets, hit enter again to push that onto the next line, open quotation marks and put unit in there. So, and then after the square brackets you put a semicolon. So what this will do is this will tell the script that that we're passing in the parameter unit. So it knows what to do with this unit parameter. Then what we can do is start applying helpers. So this will all be documented on GitHub and obviously in this video. But if you want working examples, you can go look at the CTRG loadouts because they already have them there. So for remove existing items, we can go grab the remove existing items thing we've got here and copy and paste it. So I've gone to the CTRG loadouts under factions. I've gone to Rifleman and I've copied this this block of code, this remove existing items thing. We're going to go in here, and instead of doing all of this stuff, we're going to do this. So this thing will remove existing items, and we can remove that comment. Just as a matter of interest, I like to replace those comments that get exported with my own. You don't need to. It's entirely irrelevant. It's up to personal taste, but I do like making everything look quote-unquote proper. Anyway, so now that we've got all the existing items removed, we're going to add weapons. So we're not really going to do anything special with this, except what we will do is just change the default magazine to start with. So you can see under unit add primary weapon item, there is this RHS underscore mag underscore 30 round underscore 556 by 45. You can see based on how this is phrased that this is a magazine. And what we want to do is we want to replace this default magazine with the pull, which is the one with the little quick pull on the bottom of it, just so that it lines up with all the other magazines we have in the kit. It's not exactly relevant, but if you're using it becomes relevant if you're using multiple faction loadouts and they share magazines, and you have to have like specific magazines that are declared there pretty much. So again, much like the last one, I'm just gonna put my own comment in above the add weapons. So that's it for the weapon side. The next thing we're gonna do is add containers, and containers are your uniforms, your vest, your backpack. Technically, I group headgear and goggles under containers, but it's not necessarily the same thing. But we're gonna go put them there anyway. So what I've done is I've Control X'd the headgear and goggles from below the item adding, and I've moved them up to where the rest of the containers are. So there is a more complicated way to do this stuff with the goggles and all of this stuff here, but I'm going to not do that for the sake of simplicity. But in GitHub, again, it'll be linked in the video. I have a sort of like a README on how the add gear item function works. And the add gear item function allows for randomization. So in the case of, say, our missions where we do German loadouts, right? There's a whole host of uniforms, each with sort of like a different configuration, with like different colored tops and bottoms and so on and so forth. It becomes very useful to be able to randomly select those guys out of a randomization pool, so to speak, so that you make the loadouts all look a little bit unique, a little bit different, you know. So it's not, it adds a little bit more flavor, you know. It's like not everybody's configured their kit in the same way, that kind of thing. But for the sake of this mission, these MARSOCs are going to go with uniformity, just to not overcomplicate what is already a lot of information. So I'm also going to remove the goggles. Not really too concerned with the Shema. We'll have everybody have nice clean shaven faces. The next thing we're going to do, oh wait, first I'm going to go and put my own comment there, because I do not like these comments that Bohemia exports. The next thing we're going to do is start adding items to our uniforms, our vests, and so on and so forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our Rifleman, and we're going to copy this sort of section of code here. It's add standard items to uniform and add medical items to uniform. These two things are very important. This gives us our watches and so on and so forth. Our watches are our earplugs, our map tools, that kind of thing. It's all included in this helper function. And this stuff adds medical, so bandages, morphine, blood, that kind of thing. So you don't have to worry about trying to select that stuff out of Arsenal. I've already done it for you, where you can just select this stuff and copy it through. So I'm going to grab that and copy it in here. We don't want to add anything to the uniform ourselves, so we're just going to remove that, and we're going to add that in here. So that'll add the standard items to the uniform. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add items to vest. So add items to vest. And this is all the stuff we selected in Arsenal. So it's got our hand grenades, our smoke shells, our flashbangs, and our extra magazines. Now, because this is just our regular rifleman loadout, we're actually not too concerned with the backpack. So what we're going to do is we're going to comment it out. So for people not familiar with coding, a comment is sort of like a preprocessor, or it's a line of text that gets ignored by the processor when it combs through the script and collects the actions to execute and stuff like that. So when you put this / in front of something, it makes it a comment. It means it isn't read by the processor that turns this stuff into stuff that can be executed into function calls and all that fun stuff. So we're just going to comment out the backpack because we don't need it for our rifleman. And then we're going to make sure all the items get added to the vest. We add our NVGs here, so add our night vision. And then we're going to remove the set identity because players in a multiplayer environment have their own faces and stuff set, so we'll leave it as is. And then I just need to check if I have forgotten anything. No. Okay, so with all of this done, we pretty much have a loadout. So we have a rifleman loadout configured and ready to go. So what we can do is we can test this, but before we do, there is one more thing we need to do. So we go back to our mission. We close this up. We right click on the unit and we say, what do we want to do? We want to log the classes to the clipboard. So what that'll do is it'll give us the class name of this guy. If I hover over him, you can see it says rifleman and then B_soldier_F. What that is that's the class name for this rifleman. That's important because we need it in order to correctly map the loadouts to the right player or the right unit. So what we can do is once we've grabbed that, we've copied it to the clipboard, we go to our core script. So that's in the main folder tree under loadouts. There's a core.sqf file. This is the file you're going to be editing most commonly. Under here you can see I've listed classes. In this case I only have the one because we're only dealing with one now. We'll cover more shortly. We're going to select that guy, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use one of these blocks of code here. So in this case, what this is saying is that if this type of unit, which is the class name of the unit, is equal to the class name that we've received, which is B_soldier_F, then we want to do something. In this case, we're setting the path to the loadout. So when setting a path to something, it uses the root mission directory as your starting directory. So we know that our rifleman loadout from MARSOC is nestled under loadouts, factions, MARSOC, and then rifleman.sqf. So we can see this path is already laid out for the default CTRG loadouts from the template file. We're going to replace CTRG with MARSOC, and then we're going to change this team leader over here to rifleman. Now this is all case sensitive. Just make sure that whatever the case is here, you're using it here. And by case sensitive, I mean like uppercase, lowercase lettering. Now with this created, you don't need to do anything more because I've already done the configuration setup for loadouts and stuff in the mission template, so you won't need to go over that. But as a matter of interest, in init player local, we execute the player loadout, which is just player exec VM and then the loadout. Or rather the core directory. So this core that we're editing now, that gets executed by init player local. It also gets executed on player respawn. So if the player is respawned, they will execute the loadout again, and you will get the loadout back. Now that we've done that, we can go test it because we've pretty much done everything we need to do for this rifleman loadout. So let's go have a look. And let's just make sure everything is saved. So file, save all, or Control KS will save all. Okay, so let's boot into the mission and take a look. Alright, so if we go into third person here, obviously not available on the server, you can see that the kit has been given to us. We've got the right rifle, right magazine is loaded to start with. You can see it's got the quick draw pull on the side of it. If we open up our inventory and we take a look, because of the helpers we have pre-placed earplugs, map tools, map light, bandages, tourniquets, morphine, and so on and so forth. And then inside the vest is obviously the stuff we configured ourselves. You can also see we already have a map, a GPS, a radio, a compass, a watch. All of that stuff is available to you based on the helpers that we've defined earlier on. Now, on the topic of those helpers, if you would like to replace the watch with a specific watch, so say you're using an altimeter for your power drop mission or whatever, you can toggle this variable from false to true inside your adding statum items, and that'll exclude the watch, and then you can add the right watch later. Same for map, compass, GPS, and radio. All of these things can be turned on / off as necessary. So say in this particular mission I'm not interested in giving the players a GPS. What I do then is just go back to the mission now that I've turned it off and I've saved the file. Of course it's taking its time, load back in. And once the loadout gets applied, you'll see there is no GPS available. So as you can see, no GPS. So stuff like that is doable. And that GPS terminal slot is what gets used for drone operators and stuff like that. So if you have a specific idea for a drone operator, or something along those lines, you can toggle this to true to exclude the GPS and then add your own item later on. That's imminently doable. The item can get added via I'll show you now. It's taking its sweet time. In our virtual arsenal, if you go to radios, for example, if you're interested in a specific radio, you can add it here. If you're interested in a specific terminal, you can add it here. So you can see GPS is here, but there's also UAV terminals for interaction, that kind of stuff. It's all available. Right, so I'm just going to make so that the GPS is available because we want to keep this as simple as possible. The next thing I'm going to do is create a loadout for a slightly more... In fact, let's do the medic next. Because the medic is just going to be a rifleman with an extra backpack. So we'll set the combat lifesaver. We're not going to worry too much about going into virtual arsenal now. But what we'll do is we'll go to our Visual Studio Code window again. We'll grab the rifleman and we'll copy and paste him into the same folder. We'll then rename this to medic, and then all we got to do is uncomment this backpack because now we're using the backpack, and then we're going to go to our medic loadout in our our faction configuration, and then copy this block of code here that says add medical items to backpack. So we grab that, we go back to our medic class. And we're just going to go put this right after adding items to the vest. So what this will do is it'll populate the medic's inventory with the right medical supplies for that medic. This second variable is whether or not this is a first aid slot and not a quote-unquote full medic. So that's somebody with a smaller backpack, they will have less medical supplies on them. So you may only have a medic. Again, it depends on the squad composition of the mission maker, i.e. you, as to what is available. But if you only want to include a rifleman first aid in the squads and then give the medic at a squad leader level or something like that, so you have 2 first aid members in fire teams and then 1 medic in the squad or whatever the case may be, that kind of thing is doable by tagging this to true. All it does is it reduces the amount of medical supplies that get added. So what we need to do now that we've created our medic loadout, we've added the items to the backpack. We need to go to this medic and we need to log his class name to our clipboard so we can retrieve it. Then we go back to our core file. We move to the next line, we put medic in here. We can copy paste this. Copy our medical unit class name into the if statement comparison, and then change this from rifleman.sqf to medic.sqf. So what we need to do now with these two units is we need to make them both playable. So we just go to attributes and we make them playable. So that's right click attributes playable, and then we're going to group the medic to this group, and then I'm going to switch to the medic, in fact we'll come back to that later. Now that the medic, you can see this rifleman is still playable. If I open up my scenario, as the medic, you can see the rifleman loadout is configured for this guy. He doesn't have a backpack, so he's just set up as a rifleman. But I have a backpack because I'm a medic, and if I open the backpack, you can see here I have bandages, splints, tourniquets, blood, epinephrine, morphine, all of that fun stuff. It's all available to you there. Okay, cool. So that's the basics of loadout, of the loadouts and how to set them up. So we're just going to do one more example, which in this case will be the let's go with an anti-tank personnel. And after that, everything else is going to be dead simple. You guys should be able to follow through with what you've seen here in terms of making and creating loadouts. So, slightly more complicated example is, let's put down a we'll put down a missile specialist, and we'll face him in the same direction as everybody else, and we'll make him playable. And then what we need to do is we need to go isolate the missile that we're interested in. So we're going to go open up the... So what you may want to do with a missile specialist is create them in a pair. And by that I mean is it becomes a single missile specialist to a missile specializing team, effectively. So you'll have the missile specialist who carries the missile launcher, and then the assistant missile specialist who carries the missiles themselves. That way you're distributing the weight, which means those guys are able to move more commonly, or without getting exhausted, like immediately from fatigue and whatnot. And it also it boldens the sense of camaraderie, of teamwork, right? Because now you guys together are a unit that can effectively kill a tank. One of you alone is not useful, but together you are an effective fighting unit. So, what kind of missile launcher are we interested in? We'll take a small, because smalls are cool. We'll change the backpack to a carry-all. So those will actually be higher up. So it's a carry-all coyote. And then I think it's already... Okay, cool. So unfortunately these do not have like a proper designation, but thankfully I know what that means. So this is high explosive anti-armor, and this is high explosive dual purpose. So if you're facing off against tanks, you're going to want anti-armor, and you're also going to want a spotting, or a couple spotting rounds. So what these are is it's a little magazine. I think you can see it here, over there, that gets loaded into this, and this has got it's a gun basically, that is sighted specifically to the zeroing of the launcher. So once you fire a spotting round, where that spotting round lands is exactly where the rocket is going to land. So you can use that to be extremely accurate with the small. The other thing I'm going to do quickly is just add the small sight to this gun. So we're not going to go through the process of getting all of the other, setting up all the other kit, because we already have a rifleman template. We don't need to go back in and select all the other stuff. So we've got 2 extra missiles and 2 spotting rounds. Let's call it 3, or rather spotting magazines, but let's call it 3 spotting magazines. Then we're going to export the loadout as it stands. We're going to copy the riflemen and paste them in here. And then I think I might have lost the clipboard entry, but we'll see. I did. So let's just rename this guy anti-tank. And he's the regular rifleman loadout. We can leave it like so. And then we're going to go to our anti-tank guy, and we're going to copy him, and we're going to paste him and rename this to anti-tank ASST, in other words, assistant. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab our loadout again, and we're gonna export this. We're gonna copy this. We're gonna copy this in here underneath the anti-tank assistant stuff. We're gonna grab all the items that get added to the backpack, so these guys specifically, and we're gonna go over here and say add items to backpack. We're going to replace this with unit, just so that it knows, okay, we're adding to the unit's backpack. And then we're going to take this backpack. In fact, we can just copy the class name, so you can see b_carryall_cbr. We're going to paste it in here, and then we're going to remove the comments. So this will add the backpack and also add the gear to the backpack. So this missile assistant, who is based pretty much exactly off the rifleman, will now have missiles added to his backpack. Then what we're going to do before we exit this is we're going to take the secondary weapon information. So add secondary weapon item, add secondary weapon item, add secondary weapon item, and then also add weapon. You can see this is the small. We're going to copy all 4 of these, or rather cut them out, and then we're going to delete all of this. We're not interested in this. Our anti-tank assistant is done. We're going to go to anti-tank, and then in his weapon section, we're just going to add the new weapon. So this thing will add his small, the optic for the small, and then the ammo to that small. So when he loads in, he will start with rounds in the chamber effectively, and his assistant will be able to supply him with more rounds. So what I'm going to do is go back into the game. I'm going to copy my missile specialist, and I'm going to go find assistant missile specialist AT. I'm going to group these guys all to the same group, and I'm going to copy these across. So log classes to clipboard, and if we go back to our loadout, we can add these classes to our little comment down here with the more classes that are available. And then we're going to copy this guy twice, and instead of medic, we're going to add AT and AT assistant. And then we just need to rename this to anti-tank.sqf, and then anti-tank ASST.sqf. So this is now our anti-tank soldier and our anti-tank assistant. And then we're just going to go here, save this. We'll load in as the missile specialist because we'll be able to look in the assistant's backpack. So let's just save and then load in. Okay, so you can see here we've got our rifleman with his regular rifleman loadout. We've got our medic with his regular medic loadout, and we have our fucking assistant AT hiding in the fucking bush. If I open his backpack, you'll see that he's got 2 small rounds for me and some smotting rounds. And then you can see if I open my own inventory, I have a small on me with a rocket already in the chamber, and a small sight. So if I open this guy up, and I can switch to the tracer or back to, so this is the spotting tracer, and then this is the regular rocket. So I'm already configured, but you can see if I open my inventory that I am very heavy. And this is because the small is a very large launcher and it's very heavy to carry around, which is why you need to operate in a pair with an assistant. If you don't have that assistant available, and you have to carry that carry-all by yourself, you're going to be weighed down. You're not going to be able to move at all. Right, okay, so with that more complex example out of the way, what I'm going to do for now is skip the creation of the rest of the loadouts, because you should be able to do that yourself. I'll cut back to it. Well, I'm not going to cut back to it. I'll do it separately after I've showed you how to set up the squad composition, and then you should be able to view the loadouts and how they work like that. So, in terms of squad composition, what we're going to need to do is, we can see we've got a squad here. We're going to delete these guys now, but we're going to use them as effectively a reference. So generally the way I like to set up squads is in 6-man teams, but I mean obviously that varies from squad to squad and how you want your squad composition to be laid out. We like uniformity, which is to say that we prefer if the squad compositions are at least similar from mission to mission, so that there's not that much admin around rearranging them or whatever. But obviously it will vary from mission to mission and from theater to theater. If it's a historic mission, the squad composition is going to look entirely different to how it'll look in a modern scenario. But anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a squad leader as our primary dude, and I'm just going to I'm just going to point him in this direction. Then we're gonna have a rifleman as the first guy on, or maybe we should do missile specialist. Again, this is very subjective. So let's do this. We'll put a rifleman, and yeah, a rifleman and a medic as our sort of like our raider team. So this is your 3-man group. They're gonna, you know, be pushing positions and stuff like that. And then what we're gonna do is put our specialist team, so our missile specialist, as the second unit in the group. So this is effectively, at least the way I like to phrase it, red and blue. Obviously that can change, vary about how you want to go accomplishing it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make the squad leader playable. I'm going to change the squad leader's rank to, let's call it lieutenant. Make this guy a sergeant, this guy a corporal, and that guy by default will be a private. And then I'm going to make this guy a corporal, and this guy will by default be a private. That'll sort out the squad layout, and then in order to make them appear nicely in your briefing, your mission briefing list, basically you need to develop the squads in the right order, which is, I know it sounds kind of weird, but anyway, we'll take it like this. So in your average mission you will have a sunray element, a command element, so to speak. In the case of this mission, I'm going to call it Crossroads because we're American, but what's the term for it? The Commonwealth nomenclature is Sunray. So we're going to put a Sunray element in, which is usually a squad leader, which is our first in command, a squad leader, which is our second in command, and a medic. And that is the squad composition for your average Sunray element. Then you have your regular squad, of which there will be several. I'll show you how to set those up now. And then we want a crew team. So what we'll do is we'll get our regular crewman, which is this guy, and we're gonna start them pretty much right next to their APC. So crew, 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 and we make all these guys attributes playable. Okay, so then in order to order this properly, we need to make sure that this group is the first group that gets created. So you now join him, and you now join him. So, and we're gonna make you a lieutenant, you are gonna be a captain, and you can be a sergeant. Okay, so that is our Sunray element, or in this case Crossroads element, configured. Then we're going to create our crew element. So I'm going to make you a sergeant, you a corporal, and you will by default be private. So then we join the corporal to the sergeant, and the private to the corporal, and that creates a crew element. And then lastly, we create the squad element. So we've already got our squad leader. All these guys should already have the right layout. So then we join one at a time to the squad, so that it'll come out in the order we're expecting it to come out in. Then what you can do is inside the unit, under role description, this will show, or this will say what the role description is in the multiplayer lobby. So in this case, this guy's our 1IC, our command. So we're going to do 1IC with a capital C, so first in command. And then we're going to say at crossroads. So what this does is it makes the squad read in the multiplayer lobby crossroads. Then for 2IC, we're just going to make him 2 in command. And then for our medic, he's just going to be a medic. Cool. So that is our crossroads element. And then once you've named them in the descriptions, you can go to the squad. And then if you want the squad to display crossroads on the Blue Force tracker, you can double click this, go to call sign, and say crossroads. Right, so now he will read his crossroads in the multiplayer lobby and on the map for Blue Force tracker. Similarly with our crew, we're going to call our crew team Hammer, and this will be our commander at Hammer. This will be our crewman. This will be our gunner, and you are our driver. So commander at Hammer, gunner, driver, and then we name the squad Hammer. Lastly, we need to name our default squad, of which of these I'm going to have 3 default squads. Obviously we'll most likely only end up using 1 or 2 of them, but it's good to have extra slots in case you need them. So you will be a squad leader. So squad leader at Hunter is the name of this squad. And then you can name the whole squad up here, call sign Hunter. This rifleman will be our red rifleman. This rifleman will be another red dash rifleman. So these slots will correspond to the slotting you configure on Discord and WhatsApp. So when you say these are the units that are available for you to slot in, they will comparatively link to this. So Hunter team will have a squad leader, and then red rifleman, and red medic. Then the blue team, or the second fire team, will be blue dash anti-tank. And I'm just going to copy this for sake of easy or easiness, whatever. I can't speak today. Assistant. You could also abbreviate ASST if you want, because I've spelled that wrong. But yeah, I'm going to abbreviate ASST because I'm lazy. So blue anti-tank assistant. And that'll configure the squad sort of in the order you're expected to see them. And then for this squad composition, once we've got everything in the right order, we can just copy Hunter, and we just sort of move them just behind. We call this guy Tracker. This is Tracker, and then Killer. The squad is Killer, and this is Killer. Okay, so once the squad composition is configured, what we can do is I'm just going to change myself to this guy. So what I'm going to do now that we've configured the squad composition is just show you what it looks like in the multiplayer lobby, so you can see why we went to the trouble of ordering this properly. And then I'm going to do a nice clean cut to having done all the loadouts for everybody else that you won't see. That'll happen behind closed doors. Oh, as a matter of interest, I'm going to make this mission file itself. We will play this mission, but I will make this available in the template folder, same place you got the mission template, just as an example, so you can come back and look and see what I did for the other loadouts and stuff in case you're confused or have any questions or anything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say on the top left you can click play, and then you say play in multiplayer, and that'll create a localized multiplayer lobby on your computer, and it'll generate all the slots and stuff as they would look in the multiplayer lobby for you. Okay, so you can see here, Hunter Squad, we have the squad leader, red rifleman, red medic, blue anti-tank assistant. We have Crossroads, 1 IC, 2 IC medic. We have Hammer, commander, gunner, driver, and then we have tracker and killer at the bottom. Those are your extra 2 squads. So you can see it's nice and neatly named in the lobby. Gets rid of any confusion with the alpha 1-1s and 1-2s and 1-3s lying around, people not knowing which squad they're in. This is just I will say it's entirely unnecessary. You don't need to do it, but I like to do it. It makes everything look neat. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to load in just so that you can see that Blue Force tracker, provided it's activated. I didn't check the CBA settings, picks it up, and then you can see that it has been picked up. And I'm going to cut it here, and we'll go do other stuff in order to get that configured. There we go. So you can see our Hunter marker for the Blue Force tracker is already configured. It's enabled. It's here. It's available. Okay, we'll cancel this. I'm going to go sort out those other loadouts, and I'll catch you after the hard cut.